In these lectures, I'm going to attempt to tell you about the Enlightenment. Now, the biggest difficulty I found in talking about the Enlightenment is it shapes so much of how we think as modern people in terms of how we view the world, how we view ourselves, that sometimes it's difficult to see how the Enlightenment is that revolutionary. Indeed, when we hear about the Enlightenment, we tend to think, well, of course, that's how everyone thinks. But it's helpful to see, as hopefully the first lectures have proven, that the world that was coming into the Enlightenment was a far different one than the world we live in. In many ways, the Enlightenment is what is bequeathed to us, and which is why we think the way that we do. So how are we going to try and tackle this topic? Well, first, we're going to look at strands of Enlightenment thought. Now, we won't be able to talk about every thinker of the Enlightenment, but we're going to try and hit on some of the main ones to help you see how enlightened thought started to reshape perceptions of government, of religion, of economics, of society, functionally how the Enlightenment was starting to influence how people, or reshape, if you will, how people viewed themselves and their world. Secondly, we're going to look at where Enlightenment thinkers, if you will, place their hopes. And in contrast to what we think of the Enlightenment all being about the people and democracy, many Enlightenment thinkers felt that the best way to bring about enlightened government was through a series of enlightened despots. And we're going to look at the three most famous examples of that in that lecture. Lastly, we are going to look at, if you will, the hopes betrayed, because as much as the Enlightenment thinkers put their hopes in the despots, those same despots of Russia, Austria, and Prussia were not enlightened. They were more than happy to play the old games of politics, best exemplified by the partition of Poland. And so what we're going to see in many ways is that the Enlightenment is all about building hopes in what man is capable of, building hopes in terms of what type of society could be built. And when these enlightened despots, through their partition of Poland, prove that those hopes were misplaced, it's going to lead us directly into our next series of lectures when people start to say, well, perhaps we need to bring about grander, greater change through revolution to perhaps bring about the enlightened society that we desire.